at what point do you realize that you're actually living the hero's journey? Because there's in the trailer for the film, Finding Joe, this is in the trailer. I think people wake up to the fact that they're the hero of their own life when they're tired of being the victim of it. And I can't remember who said that in the film, but
said that.
Okay. Yeah. So, so, I mean, that's exactly what's happening to you at this time of rediscovery, right?
Yeah. I think that there's a few different things, right? Like if you're on the couch doing nothing, you're definitely not on a journey, right? So you can start looking at your own life, right? Like if you're just wallowing around doing nothing, you're not making phone calls, you're not sending emails, you're not in the world of action, then you are what you would call in the village. You're stuck in the village, right? You're waiting to take your journey, or you're still in hell or whatever. And that can happen several times throughout your life, right? That doesn't need to be, it's not like a one and done thing, the hero's journey. It's nonstop, and it depends on the role you play. It gets complicated after a while. But the simple answer is, if you can really tell when you're in action doing something and you're pursuing a goal, that's why writers and entrepreneurs really gravitate to this, because that's what happens when you get in action. You start meeting people, and when you're on the right path and you're really, you're out there pushing it, synchronicities happen, and you're like, oh my God, how did I just meet that person that just offered to pay for half of this movie or whatever it is, right? So that's one way, right? And another way is it could be a crisis, right? If you're out there and nothing's happening, you could be what you would call in the belly of the beast, or bad things are happening, which always do happen. You could also say, okay, well, I'm in the dark forest right now, and I'm on my journey. I'm just lost, right? So there's different parts of the journey that you got to recognize as part of the journey. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So Campbell's definition of the hero's journey is there's separation, there's an initiation, and then there's a return. And you look at the Star Wars movies, and it's just classic hero's journey. Classic. And Campbell said that oftentimes all of this comes after a wake-up call, right? Yeah.
The thing about wake-up calls is that they're usually, not all the time, but they're usually pretty harsh, like a midlife crisis, or alcoholics experience this when they're what you would call rock bottom, or a divorce, a bankruptcy. Big life events that you find horrible are what you would call wake up calls, right? So like, for instance, if you take a bankruptcy, right? That bankruptcy is telling you that something's wrong with your finances, right? And if you look at it like that, you can use it as to remove the block and to spring you forward into better financial awareness. Same thing with your relationship. That divorce happened because something that you did, don't blame the other person, something about you is causing this relationship problem. What is it, right? It's a wake-up call. Hey, wake up and look inside and figure out what's going on, what's blocking you from happiness.
So let's talk about some of the wisdom from the film and this whole structure of the hero's journey. I guess it starts with answering the call, right? At the beginning of the journey, the hero is faced with something, and they have to make a decision. And am I going to rise to this occasion, or am I going to go back and sit on the couch and turn my phone off, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's so true. And I'm trying to, like, in the modern world, right? How does this happen, right? Because the opposite of that, the opposite of answering the call could be, I'm not saying that this is the case, but it could be something like, I graduated from high school, and I went to college to a place that I didn't really go, but my parents wanted me to go. And then I got this degree that I didn't like, and now I'm at this job that I didn't like. Like, that could be the opposite of answering the call, right? But answering the call could be something like, I politely told my parents I didn't want to do this, and I got into college, and I went, oh man, this sucks for me, and I realized this wasn't for me, and it was really difficult. But I told my parents I just dropped out of college and I wanted to become an artist, right? Whatever that is, right? So there's just different ways of answering the call, and on the extreme ends of answering the call, there's crisis. On the other, like the good end of that, there's a nudge, right? I have a friend, Jason Brown. He calls it following the nudges, right? So in your life, especially when you're younger, you're getting nudges about what it is you want to do, right? You get into your late teens, your early 20s, you're like, oh my God, I love whatever. I don't even know what it is. My son right now, for instance, he is, he's always been artistic and creative, but he wants to become a tattoo artist. And as a father, I'm like, that's I don't want you to be a tattoo artist. That's like, I view it as this like low, outside of the norms of society thing, right? So I have this one old school idea of what that is. And so for him, answering the call would be like telling your dad that, hey man, this is my path, that this isn't your path. But he's been getting nudges about what to do. And so now he's starting to pursue that, and he's paying his own rent. And I'm like, oh my God, you're on your hero's journey. Like you're answering the call, right? And I think everybody gets those nudges, right? Whatever profession is out there, if you want to be a lifeguard, a doctor, whatever it is, you're definitely getting nudges about what to do. It's just a matter of, do you answer those nudges within yourself, or do you conform to what your parents and society are saying? Hey, look, you really ought to do this, son. Yeah.
I bet your mom would be happy that he's pursuing such an artistic idea for a career.
Yeah, she definitely would.
That's cool. When I was literally flunking out of college in business school, I came to a crisis point. Same exact thing, Patrick. I was being nudged by horrible grades in a discipline that I really didn't like, and got to the crisis point. Had to change my major. Barely stayed in college, but changed my major to broadcasting, and spent 35 years up until a year ago. And it didn't feel like work a day in my life as a journalist.
Perfect example, right? If you had not listened to that thing, if conformity and making other people happy was more important for you, where would you be now?
Yeah, that is so true. Part of the hero's journey, or part of Joseph Campbell's thinking, is a statement called finding your bliss.
Right.
And I think there's, as I've consumed material in this area, there's a real debate right now. Some people are really hardcore and they say that's baloney, to tell people to follow their bliss, because it'll take them down a path and they won't make any money and they'll be disappointed and they'll be struggling. But then there's another side, and I think I'm closer to this camp, is that if you really go after what you're passionate about, I'm not saying drop everything and, sell your possessions and move your family into the station wagon and live out of that. But when we do follow our bliss, number one, it doesn't feel like work. And number two, we work way harder than anybody else because we love it.
Yeah.
And we love it.
So true. So the debate is real, right? And so out there in the world of personal development, you hear a lot of debate, right? So there's definitely two sides. And I heard this when I was touring a movie around. Someone would always stand up during the Q&A and say, hey, I would love to just drop everything and quit my job, but I need money. I need to pay rent. My kids need to go to school, blah, blah, blah. And they're right. So the actual truth is, it depends on where you are in life, right? If you're younger and you have parental support, you have way more leeway to take risks and follow your bliss. If you're older and you've been conforming your whole life, and now you're 35 and you have this wake up moment where you're like, oh shit, I'm 35. I hate what I do, but I have a kid and a mortgage. Yeah, you definitely have a lot more. I wouldn't recommend dropping everything and following your bliss. So you really have to take that on a case by case basis, and it generally has to do with your age.
Yeah.
And also, speak directly to someone who's later in life, who's trying to follow their bliss. It's important. I don't have the answer for you. I wish I did, but I will say this as far as an answer goes. It is crazy important to figure it out, because you've just realized that you've been hating what you're doing. Are you going to suffer another decade? You're going to be dead for sure. At some point in your life, you are going to die. You want to just live until you die the way you are now? So yeah, dropping everything and going to become a painter is not advisable, but also doing it, whatever you're doing now and continuing that's also not advisable. So you should figure something out.